Good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, your Sunday morning news and politics show for the Hoosier State without all that MAGA BS. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I am broadcasting from Bloomington. Hope you've all had a good weekend so far. Today, we're going to talk about the U.S. news, go through the headlines, talk about our top stories of the week, dig into some of that Epstein scandal, which continues to plague the Trump administration, before we move on to our Indiana stories of the week. And then our one big thing is the new Superman movie, a pop culture sensation that is also drawing some controversy for being quote unquote super woke. Let's welcome our panelists in here today. First, faster than a speeding bullet, it's Tracie Martin.
Hi. Thank you
More
so much
powerful.
for having me back, Scott. I'm excited to be here.
Tracie, always love having you. It's a good time whenever you're here. More powerful than a locomotive, it's D. Owens. D, welcome. Oh, D, you're on mute. We got a fumble right away.
Well,
there she is.
Technology, yeah. I don't do too bad with technology for an old lady. Hello, Scott, Tracie, good to see you.
Morning, D. And finally, he can leap over tall buildings in a single bound. It's Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. Welcome, sir.
Actually, I can leap over my ego in a single bound. That's a leap, my friend. Always good to be here. Good morning. Good morning, ladies. How you guys doing today?
Hi.
We're good.
Thanks for being here, Abdul. Love to have you. And I called in Abdul special for this one because he's a big comic book guy. Show him your shirt. There it is. Man of Steel, right there.
And also, I don't know if you guys can see it. I have the Superman tattoo here, but I realize black people getting tattoos is kind of like skywriting at night. So, good luck with that one.
Good stuff. All right, let us dig into this week's headlines. First thing I wanted to highlight: CBS is canceling Stephen Colbert's Late Show Thursday. They announced they will cancel the show in May. This comes amidst the backdrop of a looming merger between Paramount, CBS's parent company, and Skydance Media. This comes only days after the comedian called out Paramount for its $16 million settlement with Trump in the 60 Minutes case from earlier this year. The timing is extremely suspicious, to say the least. Also this week, Trump was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, a condition that makes it difficult for blood to flow back up to the heart, causing it to pool in the lower limbs. He was looking pretty swollen last weekend. Additionally, there's some makeup on Trump's hands. They're saying it's from excessive handshaking. Sounds sus. I don't know what to trust out of that administration. Also, Trump is picking on Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. He says, I was surprised he was appointed, forgetting that he himself appointed Powell. He's using a over-budget renovation of the Fed building to pressure to pressure Powell, who he wants to lower interest rates. Also, Department of Defense signs a $200 million contract with Elon Musk's XAI 1 week after his Grok chatbot identified itself as Mecha Hitler. That's your taxpayer money right there. Also, Republicans are looking to pick up 5 extra seats in Texas by super gerrymandering their maps. Democrats in California and other states are potentially eyeballing counter gerrymandering to negate any pickups. Finally, in quick headlines, Venezuela has freed 10 Americans in exchange for more than 200 Venezuelans, whom the U.S. had sent to the El Salvador CCOT prison. Many of those folks were here on asylum cases and were deported anyway. Extremely disturbing stuff there. Anybody have any quick thoughts on our top headlines this week? Abdul, you're right below me. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I have an issue with holding about the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, because the whole point of the Fed is to be an independent agency on its own. And I don't think what the president is saying is if you lower interest rates, you put more money in circulation, which in turn leads to more inflation, which is kind of what got Joe Biden sort of thrown out of office in the first place. So I don't understand who's doing the economic policy in the Trump administration these days, but I have no word. Let's put it this way. It's typical.
Yes, noted economist Ron Vera. And if y'all don't get that reference, look that one up from a couple months ago. Tracie, did anything catch your eye in that rundown there?
An unkind comment. I can't help it, dude. The fact that Trump has a disease that makes it difficult for blood to flow to his heart. I'm sorry. It's not kind to laugh at somebody else's misery, but
straight Grinch shit.
I think we all understand where the resonances are there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, indeed. D, anything you wanted to say here?
Yeah, I just want to say that, as Paul Harvey used to say, that the rest of the story behind the CBS Paramount deal is that it's going to be sold to something called Skydance. And Skydance is owned by a gigantic Trump donor. So the entire purpose is for them to take over CBS and begin to taint its news coverage in the direction that they want. That's one step in the, I guess, Project 2025 plan.
Yeah. Independent, unswayed media is disappearing rapidly. Let's dig in deeper to our top stories this week, though, and man, this Epstein stuff will not go away. D, you flagged this one. Do you wanna lead this conversation here? What's going on with Trump Epstein this week?
Actually, I don't want to lead any conversation about this, but it has to happen because, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's a duck. And this has been going on for a long, long time. Epstein and Trump may have had a falling out. Does that dismiss everything that happened with all the young ladies before? Great New York Times article just yesterday about how Trump had a party at Mar-a-Lago for, what did he call them? Teenage contestants. And the only guest was Epstein. On and on and on. And this was all known. This is mostly not new information, but people his voters chose to sweep it under the rug as opposed to paying attention to what actually was going on. And now, if I hear one more time, he's a monster, but fill in the blank, I'm going to scream, and you may hear me all the way up in NWI, Tracie, because it's crazy. Senator Durbin said that they had over 1,000 FBI agents at Department of Justice looking through all the papers that don't exist. Looking through all the papers to see how many, and flagging and earmarking where Trump is mentioned. It's crazy. They're doing the cover.
It's the whole thing. It's shit. Trump. Oh my God, he's everywhere. Right. There's pictures of these guys all over the place, right? I mean, like the 80s and 90s, those guys were tight. Epstein said he was Trump's best friend for like a decade. Did you all see the Wall Street Journal piece this week?
And by the way, I argue, you've got something when Trump threatens to sue you. That is the first sign that the story has legs, and the story is probably true, because what Donald Trump does, he bullies people using the legal process and sort of weaponizing it. Like, hey, if you do this, I'm going to sue you. And people, either they're scared, don't have the resources to fight back. Jean Carroll did have the resources to fight back, which is why she won. But that's what Trump is notorious for, bullying people through the legal process. And as soon as he said, we're going to sue the Wall Street Journal, that's when I knew the story's got to be true.
Yeah, and even quicker cue, Abdul, is if you hear the word hoax. That means pay no attention to the man behind the curtain automatically.
Fake news. Fake news. Epstein, don't know the guy.
Yep.
What I'm curious about is how on God's green earth, with all of this open information about his relationship with Epstein, did he think that campaigning on access to these files would be a clever thing? Why?
I mean, that's his base. This Epstein thing is essentially the QAnon conspiracy. I mean, look, there you've got a high level elite child trafficking ring run by this Epstein guy to hold compromise over powerful Americans. That, you know, I've heard rumors that Epstein was potentially working with a foreign intelligence service.
That was
particularly Mossad, and it's disturbing to think that, like, maybe some of that QAnon stuff, which we dismissed, it was all a mess, the whole Pizzagate thing. But, like, is Epstein the kernel of truth in that?
Well, I would argue, remember, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, first and foremost. And number two, I think the problem with this one is you have sort of two sets of MAGA. I think the MAGA folks are sort of divided into two camps. You have we can't believe this guy is associated with a sexual predator, child sex trafficker, use the term of your choice. You know, the other MAGA people are like, no, this isn't true. Trump was our leader. Trump was our God. Trump is a sycophant. So I think from that perspective, it gets interesting, because now how do the MAGA people sort of deal with this whole issue of Trump and Epstein and, you know, sexual trafficking? Do you support the victims, or do you support Epstein?
Yes, and they've been told for years, and this is why when you go and knock on a door and say, "Hi, I'm here. I'm a Democrat, and I'm here," you almost get shot in some places, especially around where I live, because they've been taught that it's the Democrats that are the pedophiles and that are running the rings from Pizzagate on up and so forth. And they're having a total meltdown because of the cognitive dissonance. It doesn't fit that narrative. And so what are they to believe? I think maybe they don't even care if it's him, but it's what they have teethed on all this time, and QAnon came from. So yes.
Yes, I'm watching that cognitive dissonance. I've been waiting for the last, basically 16 years here now, since he's been dorking around, for the cognitive dissonance to start to crumble and crack. And nothing seems to have shaken it but this.
And something else to think about too is, we were having a conversation a couple weeks ago about sort of the psychology of the Trump supporter, because someone asked him, on the weight of so much evidence, so many issues, how can these people still support Donald Trump? It's like, easy. Trump has basically personalized politics. He's like, an attack on me is really an attack on you. You know, these elitists say that they don't want you, they don't want religion, they want blah, blah, blah. It's quote unquote, we're the real Americans. And if you think about it, one of the last times that somebody sort of used this ploy, I want to say 1968, 1972, a guy named Ehrlichman, Haldeman, Mitchell, a guy named Milhouse Nixon, who, by the way, loved Nixon prior to the Watergate stuff. He was my guy. But we got to understand what he did was, he sort of like, hey, they're not real. We're the real Americans, not them. And so that's how you personalize it and say, hey, an attack against me is really an attack against you and your values by those Eastern coastal elites. And by the way, the coastal elites don't make life easier, because they're sort of have this sort of condescending, attitude to anybody who lives, east of the Rocky Mountains and sort of west of Appalachia. It's like, that's just, you're just basically Louisiana Purchase. That's all you are. That's all you're good for. So that's just me thinking out loud.
Yeah, there's definitely that straight line back to Reagan and Nixon and even McCarthy before that. The whole silent majority thing and real Americans. And it's always struck me as odd that somehow Trump was the guy who was going to stand up for Middle America when he was always one of these East Coast elites. It really, really well done, well played, Donald. I mean, there's a sucker born every minute, and there are a lot of them in this country.
And
Hey, because what better way to convince people to come to your side? Hey, I'm just like you. Like,
Right.
never mind my money. Never mind I was born in the well. Blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm really one of you. I just have the means and the resources to fight for you. But I'm deep down inside, I'm one of you.
Even though I crap on a gold toilet. Yeah.
Anybody
It-
that particular billionaire, especially, is on your side. To continue with the worn out cliches, I've got a bridge to sell you.
yeah.
But I think
Okay, so go ahead, Tracie.
I still feel like we're not hitting the nugget of what Dee was mentioning, which is the cognitive dissonance. The way people's minds are taking all of these completely contrary ideas, that a billionaire really cares about you, that he's a man of the people, that everybody that crosses the border is a gang member, that, and they know that's not true, that that Trump really had no relationship with Epstein, he hates them. All of these different ideas, his base contorts a way to make them reconcile with each other, because to do otherwise is to admit a very slippery slope, and nobody wants to be wrong. You don't want your entire worldview to come crumbling down. And I kind of wonder how we as a community can start building a net to help people come down from there, to resolve that cognitive dissonance for themselves in a way where they can land in a place where they feel good about themselves.
That's a whole nother.
I will say this, Tracie. You make up a good point about like getting people down and out of their bubbles, and it's something I've talked about a lot on my podcast with like cult experts and like radicalization experts and whatnot.
I know.
And as uncomfortable as it might be, you have to maintain your relationships with these folks. If they're your family or friends or whatever, and they've gone MAGA, like you can't cut them off completely. Otherwise, there's no ladder out of the rabbit hole. And it's
But sometimes sometimes instead of looking for a ladder, you just want to look for a rock to cover up the rabbit hole.
I mean, everybody's got a line, right? And I think it's important to try and help people find their way out. But yeah, not everybody's got the patience for it, for sure. And yeah, you can just want to cover it up and make it want to go away. But look, it's not just like everyday folks that are caught in the Trump milieu, right? Like even elected officials don't know how to handle this thing. If you look at my Congresswoman, Erin Houchin, this week, she's right in there. She flip-flop herself. Abdul, you flagged this one. What did she do exactly?
At first, she voted to not release have Congress do the procedure vote to go forward with releasing list of names, and then she must have realized she must have some polling data like, oh crap, this isn't good. So apparently she flip-flopped and said, okay, I vote against the procedural vote, but I am actually for the measure. Like, okay, all right, you're trying to have it both ways. I've known Erin for years, but Erin is in a situation where a lot of Republican lawmakers are, and not just here in Indiana. They know it's bogus, they know it's crap, but for fear of a primary challenge, by a Trump primary challenge, they got to go along with the program. But you can only do that for so long until eventually you get called on the carpet. And I would not be surprised if Democrats take the House back in 2026 and maybe close some of the gap in the legislature here in Indiana in 2026, because Republicans are basically doing everything they can to basically give the Democrats everything they want.
They are really stumbling into this thing. I mean, this is a complete own goal by Houchin, but she's so gerrymandered into her seat down here. I don't know if we can threaten her. Dee, you're active in politics in this district. Is Houchin vulnerable?
Sure. Yeah, if you have the right candidate who's able to message properly and talk to the right people and so forth, indeed you do. But I'd like to say a little bit politically about what's going on there. She actually voted 4 times no, procedurally, etc. And then what is going on is the House quickly passed the resolution, and the reason that they just did that, they just put that up to vote, is because they want to play both sides of the game. They passed it with a yes vote, but then they had a non-binding resolution that they all passed and said, "Oh no, we're for the release of everything," and so forth. And they did that so that they can come back out when it's election time next year and say, "Oh no, I voted for it. Here's the resolution." When in fact they voted against what actually means something. They only voted for the paper so that they have an election talking point.
This reminds me exactly of Josh Hawley and the Medicaid cuts around the big beautiful bill. Like, every time he could have actually done something to prevent these cuts from going through, he voted along straight party lines, then comes back afterward and, hey, I didn't support these cuts. Well, I think you're just grandstanding. When you actually had a chance to do something about it, you didn't do the thing. And Aaron, right here, you're grandstanding now. You didn't do the thing. Tracie, I mean, do those parallels seem valid to you?
They seem absolutely valid to me. I mean, Josh Hawley is the ultimate grandstander. He didn't do shit. His favorite thing is to walk around with his fist raised in the air, wearing an overly tight suit. He is a social media politician, and he's playing the game with that. And I'm not familiar with, as I'm familiar with how chin as you guys are, but I mean, the ads write themselves. She voted yes, she voted no, she voted yes, she voted no. I mean, if I were a Democrat in your district, I'd be like looking around in my Rolodex to figure out who we can start pressuring to start running on this now, because she is absolutely making herself vulnerable.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of instead of running, I just had to go back to the whole January 6th. If you ever saw the Benny Hill meme of Josh Hawley running up and down the hallways to the Benny Hill yakety sack. And I went to law school in Missouri, so I'm quite familiar with Mr. Hawley. So none of that surprises me at all.
Really? Did you know him?
Fortunately, no, I did not.
Oh, lucky you.
I knew Clark Haskell, but not Mr. Hawley.
So, Tracie, while I got you up there, you flagged this one. The administration requested Congress go back and claw back money that they had already appropriated from several foreign aid endeavors, as well as public broadcasting. Do you want to fill us in on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I want to fill you in on this, because clawing it back is the absolute perfect metaphor, because it's got this whole going on. And before I get into it, I just want to let's set the table here about what exactly they clawed back to help and put the American people first. Funding for public broadcasting, 70% of which goes to local stations around the world. The NPR is not depending on this. PBS is not depending on this. It's your local affiliates that are depending on this. The local affiliates that stay open and are still on the air when all the power goes out and you've got hurricanes coming or floods, or you're in a blizzard and you need emergency access to things. It takes a special sort of someone to hurt Big Bird and Elmo. I mean, you just keep that in mind. And these aid programs that they're talking about, We're talking about programs that are designed to combat infectious diseases, promote maternal health, providing emergency shelter and sanitation for people who are forced to flee their own country. I mean, I guess that's no surprise that he wouldn't consider that to be important. Things that are boasting democratic institutions in developing countries, humanitarian assistance, peacekeeping efforts, and here's my favorite, cutting funding to UNICEF. I mean, who picks on food and programs for kids and moms? So these are the kinds of things that Trump is so desperate to have back money for, these that have back in his hands, but we're not hearing anything about what they're choosing to do with these funds. Has he said anything about, where is this money going? How is this helping Americans? I didn't see anything, but I did see that a recent Harris poll found that most people aren't super happy for this. Most of them are very behind, in particular public radio. 66% of Americans support federal funding for public radio. The same percentage calling it a good value. 58% of these are Republicans, So the question is, what demographic is he? Who's clamoring for this? Who's asking for this? And why is Congress rolling over on it? I don't know.
There's so much there, Tracie, and I kind of don't even know where to begin. It's like,
right?
Actually, let me make a comment about the public broadcasting part, because I find myself in an interesting position, actually being a broadcaster in one of my other million jobs, and had friends in Illinois and in Indiana who work for either the Illinois Public Broadcasting Association or the Indiana Public Broadcasting Association, and I've always kind of gone back and forth on this. Like, if I got to go hustle and sell advertising, I don't get a government subsidy, then why should my friends, who I love dearly, get the same thing? Now, with that said, if I were public broadcasting, you'd think it had a backup game plan. It's like, hey, what happens if they do cut our funding? Where do we go? Where do we sort of flip that switch to make this kind of happen? Now, my friends here in Indiana, they won't be out of business until the end of the year, so they got till December to make do, but at the same time, I think public broadcasting failed to have a backup plan. Like, what happens, if even though it may be remote, what do we do if we lose our federal funding? Now, I'll also argue this is, okay, if we're going to cut their federal funding, then they should be allowed to keep their not-for-profit status, but still sell advertising commercials the way everybody else does. Because if you look at it, they don't do commercials; they do quote unquote underwriting, which basically means we say, this presentation of Masterpiece Theater, Gilbert and Sullivan, the McConnells, brought to you by a generous grant from the Ford Foundation. And then they'll show the Ford car, but they can't say the Ford car is the best car. I would say change the rules for them so they can do the exact same thing and keep their not-for-profit status. To me, that's the answer for public broadcast. But that's just me thinking out loud here.
Yeah,
Sorry
I'm
about
going
that.
to totally push back on a whole bunch of that right now. I work,
of course.
and I work, and I support. I work in an industry, and one of my many jobs that works very heavily with newspapers. The media landscape is fracturing across the board. Local media is not under necessarily attack, but just is struggling in every market across the nation. Those advertising dollars that you're talking about aren't saving anyone. And public radio has served, and public radio and public broadcasting, it doesn't just serve communities who need access to outside media. It provides platforms for local media that are rapidly vanishing across the media landscape. I mean, I know you know this, Abdul. You experienced this yourself. And changing the ability, PBS's and public broadcasting's ability to get around these non-advertising rules. I mean, that's been around forever. It's not being able to, and corporations have found a way to get their advertising on these platforms that are meaningful to them in ways that support their business and their branding already. Changing the rules so that they can say directly, we are run an ad isn't going to drive more dollars in a meaningful way. I don't see how that is a model that supports anything, but I do think that this tiny fraction of money that comes out of the budget to let a local station stay on air when a hurricane is coming through, I think that's an investment in infrastructure. I don't think we should be thinking of it as fair play for reporters. I think we should be investing in it like we do with the public long distance internet, stable roads, stable power. It should be a grid thing, like a utility.
Yeah. Accurate information is infrastructure in a way. I like the way you framed that. But I mean, Abdul has a point. Like PBS and NPR have been a boogeyman for the right for the longest time. They've always talked about doing this. And as disgusting as it is, there should be a backup plan. I'd like to think they have one. Even
and by the way, just so we all know, I get very regularly and very frequently to WFIU in Bloomington. I love those guys. Listen to them every morning because I can't stand to listen to terrestrial radio here in Indianapolis for the most part. It's all the same stuff, even though I'm in traditional corporate radio. But no, I'm a big believer in public broadcasting, and I put my money where my mouth is and give to them every time they pledge. I'm usually the first person to pledge during the pledge week, so FYI. Or FIU and FYI.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. What concerns me is and I get it, it's really easy for conservatives to be like, oh, woke big bird and it's a boogeyman. But what they're not thinking about the fact is now that Indiana public broadcasting is no longer going to be doing reporting.
Yeah, news reporting.
They're not going to be doing news coverage.
Yeah.
And for example, up here in NWI, we have a news desert. We aren't Indy. We aren't. We get a lot of our stuff from Chicago, and Chicago doesn't give shit about us. We're not interesting in their market. We're not. So we don't really have. We depend on like our local PBS and affiliate is struggling hardcore, and all of our. I mean, that's why I started my podcast, because so many of our local PBS and public radio stations and our local coverage is dying out. So who's going to cover our news that matters?
But I also think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dee. I'll follow up after you make your comments over that.
Politically, Scott is absolutely right. They've been gunning for this for a long time, and there's a reason for that. We know that Sinclair owns many of the local stations, and they tilt the news to the direction that they want to tilt it, as opposed to reporting it straight on. And the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, et cetera, is antithetical to that. They report the news pretty straight out, even though they're accused of having a bias. Their news, I don't hear the bias. And if they do have it, it's Brooks and Shields or Brooks and Capehart or something. They name it and say, this is this viewpoint and this is that viewpoint. As journalists here at the Ernie Pyle School are taught to do. And so with Sinclair taking over all the local stations that are not NPR, and so that's all the rural folks here. And we wonder why they think what they think, because their news is indeed biased. This is a long-standing, not conspiracy theory, this is a long-standing piece of their plan, and that is to take down all the local stations that are this way and then put the news in the way they want to hear it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, but see, but my thing is this too. And this kind of goes to like this whole thing about public broadcasting. To a certain degree, I use my own situation. When I lost my full-time job back in 2011 due to budget cuts, WXNT Radio, I went and started my own news service, Indie Politics. We've been going pretty strong for like almost 15, 16 years now, and are one of the most influential news political websites, in the state of Indiana. It was basically me and my laptop and my brother is what it was. They're like the Wright brothers. One day I'll show you guys the original Indie Politics screen. It's like the Wright brothers, building an airplane, in their bicycle shops. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that thing ever got off the ground. But I say, as a reminder that you're always sort of reinventing yourself and staying relevant, which is why I enjoy doing shows like this, because it helps me reach a broader, wider wider audience. Now, we have a moderate conservative editorial bent, but our news is pretty much straightforward, straight down the middle. And also, based on my news reputation, I can call the governor's office. I can call almost any state official except for Todd Rokita and, get the full scoop. For Todd Rokita, I just call the staff because they can't stand him either.
Yeah, it's and I just want to second Abdul here. Yeah, I love indie politics. You do a great job there, and I use it every week when I am putting together my Indiana stories, for sure.
And by the way,
yeah,
also thank ChatGTP and AI. They're like the best legal aid assistant clerks in the entire universe, but they're also tools. So just a reminder.
Yeah. You don't want them to think for you. You want them to, help you do the grunt work.
Oh, okay. We gotta move away from ChatGPT. I'm a novelist. I have very, very deep feelings about AI.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And you know what? We'll dig into the whole AI. We'll spend a whole half hour doing that sometime on our one big thing. Right.
And by the way, I said,
yeah.
Also say AI stands for Abdul Intelligence, just so we know. So there we go.
Well, I don't know if I'd want to put my name on some of these AIs out here. You wind up endorsing Mecha Hitler that way.
Oh my
God. The last thing I did want to highlight here on the national story is something that sort of slipped under the radar this week, though, and it's called the Genius Act, which was passed by the Senate and, then went back to the House and they did all their, reconciliation, and Trump signed this bill at the end of the week. And what it does, this is a crypto bill. And many are saying that it is essentially a green light for Trump to continue his crypto grifting. So what it does is it regulates stable coins, which is a kind of crypto coin that can be pegged to the US dollar. It is not like the more volatile meme coin like Trump issued in January. Stick a pin in that. So this stablecoin legislation that they passed through contains language that prohibits any member of Congress or senior executive branch official from issuing a stablecoin product during their time in public service, but it specifically exempts the president, allowing him to continue to make money from his World Liberty Financial crypto firm. Most disappointingly, I think 18 Democrats in the Senate helped pass this thing. The crypto industry has got its claws in both parties. The meme coin that Trump issued in January allowed him to rake in at least $148 million from anonymous and foreign buyers. This is a potential money laundering black hole. Trump wasn't always a crypto fan. He said in 2021 that it seems like a scam. I happen to think he was right then, but then he discovered what a gold mine this is for
Dummies?
nefarious purposes. Am I reading that wrong?
Well, and even worse is they are using our Federal Reserve money, our money to back this up. So when those fake dollars fail, then our tax dollars go to pick it up and pay for it. And that's big B, big S.
You'd think
here's my thought on cryptocurrency. It reminds me of Federation credits from Star Trek. That's what it reminds me of.
Oh my God.
That's what it reminds me of, Federation credits. Like, okay, so what exactly is this? I mean, I understand. And I understand that, money is whatever we determine it to be. I mean, I have my cigar ash over here. We determine my old cigars or now $100 bill. We can do that. However,
bulbs, yeah.
However, money I can't see, can't get my hands around, can't get my arm around, that somebody else can control with a computer. No, not so much.
I especially wonder why a lot of conservatives and libertarians have rallied around this thing. Like, on one hand, it's decentralized and it is not beholden to any government or democratic processes. On the other hand, like, crypto is traceable. I mean, they issue this thing, they call it, a dollar or a Bitcoin or whatever. Like, it can go from wallet to wallet to wallet, and you know where it's been each step along the line. If I'm seeing this correctly, I mean, they say that like this stuff is used for buying stuff on the black market. I don't know how that works. The whole crypto thing in general, kind of, I don't know. I can't really get my head around it. It definitely seems sketchy.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's just another financial transaction. But I would argue, if you're a big believer in civil liberties and individual rights or individual personal freedom, the fact that your money can be traced, from start to finish, and it's not like, I can trade in for cash, like I'm going to the casino, spend $20, and that's it. I mean, I always tell people, think of your credit card purchases. If the government can track your credit card purchases, just imagine what they can do with cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. Abdul, do you identify as libertarian?
Small L libertarian. I believe in fire. I believe in roads and bridges and fire departments.
Right. So like that's what the fact that like you said, Scott, that this is traceable, it just seems to fly in the face of so many traditional ethos of leave me alone, free thinking libertarians. So why are they jumping on this? So crypto, when I hear the words crypto and meme coin and all that, I'm going to be honest, it makes me itchy. I find the whole concept ludicrous. And it feels like a shell game that's just about to explode. And the fact, Dee, that this is all news to me, the fact that, we're going to be on the hook with the Fed to cover these losses, you'd think that the mortgage crisis never happened. I mean, have we learned nothing?
And by the way, and here's something else to think about too. What's to stop somebody from inventing counterfeit cryptocurrency?
Nothing. They're making out of Zibbly Zorks and gold press latinum. Like it's all nonsense.
But it all depends upon your frame, where you're coming from. From people that are thinking sentient beings like us, who have our own money at stake in this instance, of course we would say, how could anybody do that? From their thinking, it's like buying a ticket to the Hoosier Lottery. This is my big chance to get rich fast. And I'm going to take it. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to run. I don't care who tracks it. As long as I got 148 mil in my pocket, what the hell? Who cares?
It's like really.
And then also, depending upon, you can track it. But what if you said shell game? It reminded me of shell corporations. What if it's set up to go through shell or false places? Track this. Go right ahead. I think it's very dangerous because it doesn't have the protections put in place that we need to keep us from, and those people who are investing in it, from being taken advantage of big time.
Let's put it this way. I trust the crypto with a K more than I do crypto with a C.
There we go. I like it. Bringing it all the way back around to Superman. You know what? I had something I was going to say, but that's perfect. I'm going to leave that there. We're going to move on to Indiana stories and a look at the headlines from the Hoosier State in a segment I like to call Around the Corn. So this week, Abdul's good friend Todd Rokita was denied his call by
motion to dismiss.
Let me try this. Yes, the Indiana Supreme Court denied his motion to dismiss a second disciplinary action against him, resulting from public comments he made about Indianapolis abortion provider Dr. Caitlin Bernard a few years ago. Also in Indiana law, some far-right activists are suing the state Republican Party, claiming that the party leaders undermined the rights of delegates by making convention changes beyond their authority in both 22 and 24. Whatever they did, it didn't seem to work because the activist base got their guy, Micah Beckwith, on the ticket last year. Beckwith is co-signing onto this lawsuit, though. He is behind his activist base.
He's actually just to correct you, Scott.
Yeah.
The gentleman who filed the lawsuit, his name is Joseph Bortka, who's a whole. The guy's got some issues. Let's put it this way. Sieg Heil. Sorry about that. Did I say that out loud? But Micah Beckwith is not a party to the litigation. However, he did sign off on a letter to help raise money for the litigation. So
yeah, he supports it, though he's not a party to it. Yeah,
even though he supports it, even though he's not a party, and he actually benefited from the rules that the lawsuit has been filed to throw out.
Yeah, I think like the very existence of Beckwith in the lieutenant governor's office like kind of disproves the need for this suit, but we'll see how that plays out going forward. Also this week, CNBC released their annual rankings of states by quality of life. Indiana coming in third from the bottom, behind only Tennessee and Texas. Lawmakers in the state are debating bringing the firing squad back to Indiana.
Stop it.
With the state having wasted several $100,000 on expired execution drugs over the past couple years. Finally, just a quick thing I wanted to flag. It's not necessarily an Indiana story, but Trump and RFK Jr. are claiming that Coke is going to switch from using high fructose corn syrup in their beverages back to natural cane sugar. A lot of people seem to like that. They like the taste of the natural cane sugar. But from an Indiana perspective, this change would threaten thousands of jobs in the corn industry. So that's something to keep an eye on here as well. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, Coca-Cola is disgusting. I'm a Diet Pepsi person.
Stop it.
Bold take.
Coca-Cola tastes like carbonated Father John's cough syrup. My mother used to make me take when I was 8 years old. It's just Diet Coke I can live with. Coke Zero I can live with. Just regular Coke.
There's nothing.
What about that Mexican Coke? Any of it? Just all bad?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say they used to use real cocaine actually in Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, no, I'm talking about.
Back
that
in the
wasn't a cocaine
1900s.
joke. I'm really talking about the Mexican Coke with the cane sugar in it. You can get those in the grocery stores.
Politically, Trump came out and said that, but that's another one of his barefaced lies, because Coke came out the next day and said, actually, sir, that's a great idea, but that's not on our table right now.
Yeah, well, for firing Colbert wasn't on CBS's table, but this guy has a way of making things happen.
Oh my God.
No, but
dig in.
No, just a couple things on the Todd Rokita lawsuit complaint, which I've obviously very close interest in paying attention to. He filed his motion to dismiss, and if you read it, was like the ramblings of a lunatic. It's like reading a Lord of the Rings novel out of order, and and each part of the Lord of the Rings is in a different part of the book. So it was ridiculous. However, what I thought was a bigger issue was the fact that his motion to dismiss was denied, and it was denied unanimously by all 5 Supreme Court justices. Number one, and number two, I thought the other interesting bit of that story was how they're going to do the hearings, because normally just be one disciplinary hearing officer, and that would be it. What the court decided to do was go the route they used to discipline judges. So they have 3 hearing officers, one from northern, central, and southern Indiana. So this way, there's no question, no issue, and no whining if and when the results come back. Now, I frankly think that Rokita's probably going to end up he'll have his law license suspended without automatic reinstatement, which basically means he can't be attorney general anymore because he has no law license. But that's just wishful thinking on my part. But I do think the court is going through extremely close, painful steps to make sure that that the Toddmeister gets his due process, which I'm a firm believer, even though I think he's an asshole, even assholes are entitled to due process, and then take them out and hang them.
Yeah. It's not a partisan thing, right? I mean, Rokita is being held to account by a very Republican Indiana Supreme Court. You know, they are not carrying water for him.
Well, you
So
know,
that's good to see.
Question, Abdul. Okay, so I hate Todd Rokita too. Like everybody I know hates Todd Rokita, but you hate him in a very unique way, and I'm curious of like you hate him more than anybody I've heard. What's
Yes.
going on with that?
This goes back to when he ran for the U.S. Senate. And the day that I think it was Susan Brooks was actually filing her petitions in the Secretary of State's office. He had a Barack Obama character walk around the State House in blackface, and I was like, dude, this is not cool. And from then on, that's when our relationship went south. And because I remember back in 2018, I was asked by the Indiana Debate Commission to moderate the U.S. Senate debate between Mike Braun, Todd Rokita, and Luke Messer. And the big problem came with because Rokita said he wasn't going to participate in the debate because basically I was the moderator. He said he didn't want liberal journalists and biased media and liberal law professors and all this other crap. And so I remember calling the debate commission like, hey guys, this debate is important for Hoosiers. If you guys want me to step aside, I'll do it so the debate can go forward. They were like, no, we're not going to cave to this bastard. They didn't say bastard, but I did. We're not going to cave to this Mo-foe. So if he shows up, he shows up. If not. Then he showed up, and that was that. And then when he banned me, but I guess the ice on the gravy was when he banned me from his news conferences. And that that's when I first had to, in my adult life, decided to sue the government. Because I'll never forget the conversation I had. I was trying to figure out what to do and how to get this all done. And then I got a phone call from some friends of mine at the ACLU, like, hey, how's it going? Like, yeah, they just lost a major abortion ruling. I was like, hey, you guys interested in suing Todd Rokita for kicking me out of his news conference? And the canopy opened, and the rainbows came down, and the dove came back with the olive branch in his mouth, saying, "Hey, there's land, so we're not going to be at sea for 40 days and 40 nights." And we ended up settling out of court, and I got access to his news conferences. But that was the one that did it for me was when he kicked me out. Even though it's legitimate media, never had any problem with any other people whatsoever. But that's why, if you notice, he either won't do news conferences in Indiana anymore, or for some strange reason, they keep forgetting to send me the advisory.
What a petty, thin-skinned man. Yeah, we could devote a whole episode to Rokita's shenanigans, and maybe one of these days we will. But right now, I wanted to turn, not very far from the State House at all. We're going to stay right downtown in the Circle City, and looks like we had a mass shooting a few weeks ago on July 4th weekend, and there has been much debate in the city about the appropriate level of policing and what to do about the crime situation there. Abdul, you've been writing a lot about it. I'm going to let you fill us in from here.
The crime have been starting to get out of control, and then we had the shooting on the 4th of July, Monument Circle, right by the Arts Garden. If you're ever familiar with downtown Indianapolis, but near Washington and Illinois Street, 2 dead, teenagers, curfew violations, the whole 9 yards. And so it caused a big stir because statistically, downtown is the safest neighborhood in Indianapolis. However, statistics don't matter when you see the bodies of 2 dead teenagers lying in the middle of the street. As I wrote in my column, perception becomes reality, is what it is. And you can give all the stats in the world. It's this. It doesn't matter. It's like the old joke. Statistically speaking, flying is the safest way to travel. But tell that to the people who just died in the plane crash. In Air India. So the city's taking a lot of steps. I'm outside and it's starting to rain. So if you hear the rainwater, that's what all that is. Not down rainwater, just regular rainwater. So they stepped up police presence. Some of the faith-based groups, so the anti-crime groups, a group called Temple Coalition, done by my good friend Reverend Charles Harrison. They were downtown last night, and actually last night everything was fine. And a lot of the police stepped up the curfew enforcement. So parents were holding you and your kids accountable, and they got their act together. But the thing is, what are they going to do for the long term? Because it's easy to deploy your forces one night. And I would say the good news is school starts in a couple of weeks. And so school being back in session will mitigate some of these, late night kids running around. But you can't have your city as Dodge City. You just can't do that. You can't get a reputation, particularly when your city's a good chunk of your income is based on tourism and conventions. Plain and simple.
Okay, I got a question for you. So, like, now you said like downtown statistically is the safest neighborhood in the city, and as I recall, violent crime in Indianapolis is like down this year, homicides especially. If we keep writing about it and keep talking about it as perception becomes reality, does that not make keep feeding into that? If we keep talking about how violent it is, doesn't that just feed the narrative that it is in fact violent when the statistics say otherwise?
I think if you just report the murders without any sort of context, I think that's more the bigger concern, because we have a moral obligation, like, hey, to report this stuff, because if people don't want to come downtown because business will suffer, got homeless issues, potholes, the whole 9 yards. But I do think that responsible journalists will take that into account. I mean, the blogosphere and the Twitter sphere and the Twitterverse and the keyboard commandos, they'll do what they want to do, and they talk in a vacuum in an echo chamber anyway. But when someone turns on the news at 6 o'clock at night and says, hey, there was a shooting in downtown Indianapolis, we're like, what the hell's going on down there? And I also think, too, that when the city doesn't respond accordingly and acknowledge, like, hey, folks, and it took them forever to admit that, hey, crime is down, but the perception is there, and we need to fix the perception. Somebody finally found Jesus late last week after what I wrote and said, hey, we need to address this. Like, you think?
Yeah, so how are they addressing it? I've seen lots of different proposals. So I mean, I guess the IMPD is stepping up, like curfew enforcement. They're gonna be patrolling the streets more, looking for youth out past when they should be out. That's one thing. But then, like, Mike Braun is talking about bringing in state police. There's a state senator, Michael Young, out of Indianapolis, is talking about the state taking over downtown Indianapolis, taking it out of the state's jurisdiction.
Let me tell you this right now. That ain't going to happen. I can tell you this. I've known Mike Young for years. Mike talks a big game, and that ain't going to happen. Because number one, as I had some conversations with my friends in the governor's office, like, do you guys really want to do this? Do you really want to be responsible for safety in downtown Indianapolis? And by the way, what do you consider downtown? Is it just the Monument Circle? Is it the Mile Square, North, East, South, and West Street? Or is it the interstates? So first of all, you got to define what downtown actually is. And if the state's going to take over law enforcement, do I still have to pay taxes, for police, for fire, for EMS? I think there's a lot more than people think. And instead of sort of doing these quick sound bites, that, hey, we're here to work with the city of Indianapolis, do what we can to keep it safe and secure, because the state does depend on Indianapolis for a lot of its revenue. That's why I remind my rural lawmaker friends, like, why should I care about Indianapolis? Because without Indianapolis, this place is called Wyoming. Without the natural scenery, thank you very much.
Yeah. I worry that folks like Young, folks like Braun, the police, talking about Indianapolis as it's some sort of violent crime scene. What did Braun said? It's like shootout at OK Corral and stuff. I mean, these guys
I'll
are
argue
fueling the perception that it is violent.
Well, but I will say this though: when we had the shooting of the two teenagers, that was kind of like the OK Corral. I mean, now, granted, it was also targeted too, is what I found out, because most of these shootings it's beefs, it's gangs, it's kids on social media getting into arguments, then having easier access to guns and firearms and the whole 9 yards. And also too, I want to say a couple days ago, a buddy of mine who's a hot dog vendor, usually by the east side of the circle, he almost got into a fight with a homeless guy because the homeless guy was being aggressive and assertive. And then my buddy runs a comic book store, tried to intervene. Then one of the downtown violence interrupter people, it was just a mess. And it was symbolic of the issues and the concerns that are plaguing the downtown area. And luckily, my friends on the 25th floor of the mayor's office pulled their heads out of their butts, like, hey, we probably need to do something about this. Like, yeah, you think? This is going to sound really bad, but my running joke has always been, Had I been elected mayor a couple years ago, none of this would be happening right now. But that's just me thinking out loud.
Well, there is
look,
something I kind of want to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Tracie.
Dee.
No, it's okay. Real fast, I think that from an overarching perspective, that fear is what is used to control people and so forth. I know, I've gone places and I've had Trumper people say, "Oh my God, you don't want to go there. It's not safe." Chicago. I said, "Are you kidding? I walked around the streets downtown Chicago at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't have any problems. I mean, I might be an idiot for doing that, but that's not a problem." And I just don't understand what the long game is with raising the fear there, because as you said, Abdul, if people stop coming to Indianapolis, then the state starts losing revenue, and that's not real smart.
It plays into the traditional narrative of liberal cities versus rural communities, and it serves their purposes. They just don't have long games. I think that's part of the problem when we try to ascribe motivation or rational thinking to MAGA-fied Republic elected officials. They don't really think long game. They just react to with whatever meat is available to them at the moment.
And if I Tracie bring up, because I have a conversation with a rural lawmaker, we've known each other for years. He's like, "Abdul, I don't feel safe in Indianapolis." Well, to be honest with you, I don't feel safe walking the streets in your town either, for obvious reasons. Number one, and number two, here I may get shot, but in your neighborhood, I don't know where the meth lab is. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All God's municipalities got problems.
But I think we always want to treat these things with more police, more incarceration, and take care of stuff after incidents happen, and we don't want to invest upstream in social services and poverty relief and gun control.
Thank you.
Kids are going to be dumb, especially young men are going to be dumb no matter where they are. If there's guns everywhere, then dumb can turn deadly.
You see, but I don't think gun control would have addressed this issue. And I'm not necessarily an NRA person, but if I can buy a gun, say, in an alley, or the gun stolen from someone's house, I buy it from them. Gun control isn't really going to make that much of a difference. I mean, I do believe though that if you taking a comprehensive approach to crime, it's weed and seed. If I see you on the corner bleeding, I'm going to ask you, "So what did you have for breakfast this morning?" I need to stop the bleeding first, and then get you on the right regimen, right program to take care of your health. But to automatically eliminate all guns, it's not going to do anything. People just start killing each other with sticks and knives. Unfortunately, guns are part of our culture. They've been part of our culture from day one. They're going to be part of our culture until the very end.
They are a part of our culture, but what you're saying defies a certain sort of logic. If there are less weapons available, they won't be there to be used. And it's a lot harder to kill somebody with a stick and a knife than it is to take a semi-automatic weapon and plow it across the field of people, or handgun. One of those is far more deadly. One of those is able to be shot from across a distance, ensuring that the other person feels a sense of safety. And they're far more likely to be used. And all of these issues that Republicans have traditionally used to address violence that is gun violence, blaming parents for being inattentive, applying curfews, criminalizing kids and saying they're not filing responsibilities. These are remedies that have been in the water for 20 plus years and have done nothing to address gun violence. So I think maybe making it so that there are less guns available for people to use might be a sensible solution to try.
Well, but I'll push back on the curfew thing though, because curfew actually did work. It worked last night.
Yeah, well, also I'd like to look at it from a different perspective as opposed to back and forth, and that is the perspective of gun safety. I think if we look through that lens, we would maybe see certain things differently. For example, Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana passed in the late 60s. He got a law passed. It was about the so-called Saturday night specials. And those were handguns that more often than not blew up in the face of the user, but they were easy to get. So, now we can print plastic guns from a 3D printer. Things have changed a little bit, but it's still an issue, I think, of gun safety. And looking at it that way, I think would help this argument. But I know we could do a whole show on that, right, Scott?
And Tracie, I'll agree with you from the sense that I'm a firm believer that if you got a gun, you should be registered. Period. I have no problems with that whatsoever. It doesn't infringe on your right to own a firearm. It's just letting us know who owned this weapon, where is it registered, and that way if the gun's stolen, it protects you, the individual. So the cops and law enforcement will come back to you saying, hey, what the heck is going on? And also, I believe if you're going to own a gun in the home, you should have to have it, but you should have insurance on that weapon as well. I think there are things we can do to protect responsible gun ownership and also go after the bad guys, with weapons without confiscating guns. So, and by the way, my wife is a sharpshooter.
I agree with you there, Abdul.
And I didn't find out she was a sharpshooter until after we got married, by the way. So
that must have been a fun surprise.
We're going to have to do like a both and technique. I mean, we're going to have to step, there's going to have to be enforcement now, but we also need to take care of those things upstream so we can reduce the need for enforcement later and sort of shift the spending back upstream. I did want to move on to our next story. Dee, we've been talking about this here a little bit, but several weeks back, it might have even been a couple months at this point, the state gave the Braun administration permission to explore tolling any interstate in the state. But you also wanted to look at this kind of in a conjunction with the budget. And this year we find out the state ended the fiscal year with a $2.5 billion surplus. So take it from there.
Yeah, well, this really honks me off. We already paid for these damn roads. Why would I want to pay for them again? Oh, because the NDOT says that all those electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids and hybrid vehicles are bankrupting the state. Oh, really? Well, why don't we talk about the gas tax? You want to talk about bankrupting somebody? Let's talk about the gas tax. And I'm going to look at a cheat sheet to make sure I get the numbers right. Yeah, we have $2.5 billion in surplus, just so we have bragging rights. Let's look at that. You pay 7% sales tax when you buy your car, whether it's new or used, so it kind of gets taxed multiple times. You pay excise tax every year on whatever vehicle you have, supposedly at a decreasing rate, although I don't see mine decreasing much lately. Every time you gas up, you pay the following: 0.1 cent of oil inspection fee, whatever that is. You pay 36 cents excise tax, which has gone up every year for the last 8 years, thanks to the Republican supermajority in the state of Indiana, which have been in charge for 20 years. So any taxes that have been raised in the last 20 years, you can thank the supermajority for that. We also pay 17.5 cents sales tax on that gallon of gas. And then, of course, you throw in 18.4 cents of federal tax, which actually does fund highway stuff. And you end up with 72.9 cent tax on a gallon of gas in the state. That's the 5th highest in the country. So why are our roads so crappy? And why is the road fund broke? I want to know where that money's going. I want to know whose pockets are being lined. I want an audit. This affects farmers that have to run their equipment on gasoline. This affects the poor that have to go to work and can't afford a gallon of gas. This is a huge issue. And to blame it on electric vehicles is, I think, ludicrous.
I mean, electric vehicles are having probably, some effect in that, like, and just like vehicles are more efficient. So, people are generally buying less gas, but still, like you said, we have the highest gas taxes in the area by a lot. Where is this money going? Why are our roads in such bad shape, even with those high taxes? How are other states handling this? if their roads are in better shape and they're charging less in gas tax, what are they doing, and can we look at that? But D, I did.
But also got to remember too that
something.
other states aren't the
Go ahead.
crossroads of America either.
Yeah, I want to hop on this for a quick second because in NWY, I actually just interviewed State Senator Rodney Poole about the tollway bill and the budget. And up here, we get the 8094 corridor is one of the most trafficked by commerce in the nation because Chicago is a rail hub. So, and that's we already have one toll road up here, and they want to take 8094 and make it the other, and that is the central point for all of these people that are hitting mill jobs. And so up here, we're all really, really concerned about them turning that into a fucking tollway because there's no other way to really get around up here. And it's already so trafficked. And if we've got 2.4 billion in a surplus, why are we needing to put so much at risk up here?
Well, I will say this for both Tracie and D. I pulled this stat out of Nikki Kelly's commentary in the Capitol Chronicle. It says that, okay, so we've got a $2.5 billion budget surplus. Well, one analysis said local governments would require an additional $2.4 billion annually to eliminate poorly rated local roads and bridges across the state over the next 10 years. So you could spend down the entire budget surplus. That'll get you 1 year of road repairs. So it's not like just dipping into that is going to solve this problem.
It's equivalent. It's equivalent of dipping into your savings account to pay your monthly utility bills.
Yeah,
that's what it's. And that's what I told people. Like when we have the teacher pay debate, someone asked me, "Do we have a $2 billion surplus? Why can't we use that money for teacher pay?" Well, you could, but what are you gonna do next year and the year after that and the year after that? You never use one-time money to pay for ongoing expenditures. Number two, also you got to keep a healthy amount of reserves, which is anywhere from 8 to 12%. So there's that equation to it. Because by the way, although Indiana had like $330 million in extra money in the last biennium, those numbers are going away in the next couple of bienniums. I would argue the best way to keep your budget happy, keep your budget balanced and the surplus is a healthy economy. And unfortunately, that takes roads and infrastructure to get that done.
And just like we were talking about at the top of this segment with the quality of life ratings, people don't want to move to Indiana. They don't want to, especially folks in those high earning jobs that would help our economy out and, pay more taxes. They don't want to come here. And I don't blame them.
Well, did I, Scott? I forgot to point out that people that have PHEVs or EVs, plug-in hybrids, or they pay an extra $50 to $150 per year when they go to pick up their license or their plates to make up the difference that they don't pay in road taxes. So,
which I guess that doesn't seem entirely unreasonable if you spread it out over the whole year. I mean, that's a couple tanks of gas. You go ahead, Tracie. Sorry.
Get EVs right now. Like, it's not like the entire state of Indiana is awash in electronic vehicles. It's just not the case. I know this because we just tried to buy a hybrid and it took forever to get it because they don't have enough cars to go around. So it's not EVs that is causing this gap in funding.
So Tracie, you have to pick up the phone and call Elon Musk and say, "Hey, I need a Tesla."
No, I'm not going to do that. No, I don't want to think
some of the folks in the state government are saying it's precisely because we're the crossroads of America, like Abdul says, that like we get a lot of folks from out of state coming through here. They don't stop and contribute to the economy. They just come in, tear up our roads, and leave. is there a way to, I don't know, toll out of state vehicles? I mean, that's like, I was in Oklahoma several months ago, and you don't have to stop at any toll booths or anything. They just capture your license plate and send you a bill. Maybe they just send bills to out of state people. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out
But
there.
the trick is, though, when you start doing that, you run to constitutional issues in the Commerce Clause, because states cannot do anything that discriminates or essentially burdens interstate commerce. And so, if you start charging people more just to drive through, you're going to run into some major constitutional issues. It's one thing to be licensed here and have your plates here. That's one thing, but to charge people more just to drive through, you're going to have some issues. What about airlines next? And what about ships and waterways? And people just coming to visit. Let's say I live in Danville, Illinois. I want to drive to for Danville, Indiana. Do I got to pay every time I travel back and forth? Or if you're Fort Wayne or Cincinnati or my friends in the region, people driving back and forth to work. So you got to be very careful of that part of the equation.
Well,
that's why we have. It's good to have an attorney on the show.
Senator Pohl had a really interesting idea about that, actually, which I was like, oh, I hope you bring this up in the next session, where we could issue toll vouchers, travel vouchers, a la school choice vouchers, so that Hoosiers can get a break on tolls. I'd be interested to see where that goes.
I think we need to not have our roads tolled. We already paid for them.
Well, amen, sister. I am 1000% behind you. The idea of having 8094 be a toll road makes me, I would rather us invest in a specific toll which we've been trying to get up off the ground here forever, which is a bypass so that 8094 becomes an open road that's not covered with trucks all over the place. And it becomes a shipping corridor, which all major shipping trucks are required to take. But that seems to me we could capture tolls there. We would improve air quality up here. We would improve traffic fatalities. But you keep running into NIMBYism with that one. Sorry, I'm digressing.
Yeah, a lot going on. I do want to go ahead and move on, Tracie. This is one you wanted to bring up. So we've been following this here for the last couple weeks. That there's been this church in Indianapolis called the Sure Foundation Baptist Church, and they are openly calling for violence against the LGBTQ community. And then you also had an incident up in the region recently where a church up there was up to some funny business. You want to tell us about that?
I do. This particular topic is very near and dear to my heart. I am the parent of a gay trans teen. And we recently, this just exploded up here in the last couple of weeks. There's a local teen here. He was removed from his leadership role at Bethel Church, which is a very well-known mega church in Crown Point. And he was removed about a year and a half ago after he came out to his parents, and the church leadership discovered that he was gay. The whole family then, left the church, of course, and they found a new church home. And a year and a half later, this kid had signed up for a well-known Christian summer camp. That Christian summer camp distributes lists of attendees to local church administrators, so everybody knows who's going and they can connect. And one of the administration at Bethel Church got this list, saw Bryce's name on it, and then decided to out this kid to the summer camp, who then kicked him out of the summer camp. Now, his parents, this came to we all were like, I don't know why this should have shocked the community, but it really did, because it was just so egregiously cruel, I guess. And it got a lot of coverage, and the church is not really backing down. They issued a very mealy-mouthed statement about, we love everybody, but, marriage is between a man and a woman. None of it addressed why they felt it necessary to out this kid to this summer camp. The summer camp isn't really commenting, but some of the statements they have been making make it very clear that they were concerned that this kid would then infect the other kids with his gayness. It's an extremely disturbing story. not only because of the fact that it's just performatively cruel, but they violated so much trust and privacy issues for this kid. And they really don't have, there's no mechanism to hold them accountable other than public outrage. I spoke to several different LGBTQ plus affirming clergy for a series that we're doing on this topic on Blue by the Lake. And they all affirmed that they are not A, surprised by this, or B, have any sense of how any church could be held accountable for these actions. And the same for the Sure Foundation Baptist Church, who are literally getting on the floor and saying, pray for gay people to die. It's gross and it's cruel, but it's dangerous. It is dangerous to out people. It is dangerous to openly advocate for violence against gays. And I have all kinds of stats that I can talk about with that, but I just wanted to pause for a minute and let folks here react to that.
Well, I'll tell you, Tracie, the story up there is just really disappointing, and it's heartbreaking on individual level, and you feel bad for that kid because, like, you know, here is somebody who is really trying to go and, you know, let's just like be a camp counselor and, you know, raise up the youth and help their community and, like, you know, actually like do that sort of stuff that Jesus would have wanted them to do. It makes me wonder if these people who are claimed to be, like, you know, Christians and leaders in their church have actually read this book that they claim to preach out of. But the one down here in Indianapolis, friend of the show, Cliff Marsiglio, an activist up there in the city, kind of called out these big protests that have been gathering outside of this church. Are we giving them attention that maybe it would be better if we just like ignored them and they'd go away? And I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh, I do. I know exactly how I feel. I think the more attention that we draw to these issues, the better. Because they're showing their colors. If I didn't discover what happened to Bryce, I would have not then gone and made a muck and a ruckus. We wouldn't have had these media reports. Bethel has now gotten a ton of negative attention. And a lot of these people that attend some of these mega churches, they don't necessarily know or agree with these stances. There are people that they have been there for years. They think some of these institutions are open and embracing, but when the rubber meets the road, they are not supporting the people that they say that they support. Now, bringing light to those issues is important because it makes people make educated choices about where exactly they do go to worship.
Yeah, I think an additional frame for this is one where I cast those people who show that bias as being perverts. Why in the hell are they worried about what other people do? They need to worry about their own stuff and stay in their own backyard. And it absolutely infuriates me that we even have to talk about this. Unfortunately, we do, and we got to talk about it a lot. And I understand it. I used to be of the school that Cliff, it sounds like Cliff is in, and that is just let them roll around in their own garbage, and then they'll go away. We have to let people know that not only is this wrong, not only is it perverted, but it damn sure isn't what Jesus of Nazareth preached.
And it's
I just one quick phrase. The only discrimination I believe in is discrimination based on ability, and that's it.
So
yeah. these people's behavior, right? Going out there and calling for death and for, you know, going out there and like shunning good kids. Their behavior itself deserves to be called out.
I believe we call them Pharisees and doctors of the law in the New Testament, if my memory serves me correctly. But that's just me. I'm not Christian, so what do I know?
But there are very real life consequences for allowing attitudes like this to go unchallenged. Now, when I started digging into statistics of hate crimes against the community, the most recent one that I read was from GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Anti-Defamation. They have a tracker now where they track anti-LGBTQ extremism. And just from in the last year, from May 2024 to May 2025, they reported 2.5 instances a day nationally. Now, keep in mind that these are instances that are occurring and that are classified at the state level as a hate crime and are being reported. And hate crime laws are weak in so many places and also are just or non-existent. And they're so different. Like to actually meet the high bar of that threshold to be quantified in that way, imagine what's not happening there. And when the FBI has a crime study that they do every year, and the latest one that we have data for that was analyzed is 2022-23, LGBT people are 5 times more likely to be a victim of violent crime and 9 times more likely to be a victim of hate crime. So even, can you imagine what those are like now that they've got an administration that have given them all a green light and a blank check to be as nasty as they want to be? So there are consequences, real world consequences when you out a kid. That kid could be attacked at school. He could be attacked on the street. If you're going on a pulpit and you're telling your people, pray for people to die, they are getting a permission from you directly to go out and make that happen. So,
yeah,
I think that is stochastic terrorism and should be charged as such.
I agree with that. The term hate churches, that is a contradiction in terms right there. Churches are supposed to preach love, not hate. You mentioned GLAAD. I've had the president of GLAAD stay at my house, and he is a minister in a large church in Boston. So not all of them are like these people.
No, they're not.
They need until they go away.
So I interviewed 3 different LGBTQ clergy, and they're from traditional Christian denominations, and it was eye-opening. These attitudes don't actually match what the majority of the public feel. So GLAAD's recent study, they found that 90% of non-LGBTQ Americans believe the community deserves to live free from violence and discrimination. 3 and 4 of non-LGBTQ adults support equal rights for LGBTQ people. So, I mean, this tells you a little bit, if this is what Americans feel, doesn't it give you a little pause about how is this new cohort going to behave? Because they're a small minority, but they are able to do whatever they want. It scares me.
Yeah, these Christian nationalists are a distinct minority, but they are very loud and they have a big platform. I did want to get into our last story here in Indiana. Speaking of Christian nationalists, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed in a July 15th letter to congressional members that they are going to use Camp Atterbury here in Indiana, as well as Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey, for, quote, temporary use by the Department of Homeland Security to house illegal aliens. In other words, they're finna turn Camp Atterbury into an ICE concentration camp. Perhaps, fortunately, at least this one is made of permanent structures and not a tent in a swamp. But either way, this doesn't look good. Who wants to tee off on this one first?
Well, there will be protests, let me tell you. I know at least one congressional candidate who's setting the protests up, and I encourage everybody to join every day. We need to make them know that this was used as a concentration camp to keep some prisoners in World War II, and it does not ever need to be used for that again.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough that I think we need to keep bringing up World War II and the Japanese internment camps and say this did happen here before. We are not above this, and we have to purge this disgusting urge to
Well,
incarcerate people like this. You know, people who are generally 90% of the time didn't even commit any crime, and then the crime they did commit often is like being here illegally. You crossed an imaginary line without a piece of paper. I don't think that deserves.
Yeah, but you got to understand though.
concentration.
I'm not a big fan of concentration camps. I actually used to live in Europe for 4 years. I've actually seen Dachau up close and personally because I went to Munich for college. I do think it's a very fine line between getting rid of dangerous, felons, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, the whole 9 yards, versus somebody just basically came here just to find a job to feed his or her family. I think there's a difference between those two. And I do think we look at the illegal immigration issue the wrong way. It's not so much a supply issue, it's a demand issue. Because who hires these people? You wouldn't come here if there wasn't a job waiting for you. Because we all know illegal immigrants do the work that I ain't doing. I'm not cleaning toilets, not scrubbing floors, not gonna be washing dishes or parking cars. That's not what I went to law school for. But we need to figure out exactly how these people should be treated. Give them all permanent resident status, give them green cards, don't let them become citizens so they can't vote. That'll be the punishment. But just let them live here and just move on.
Yeah,
Exactly. And if we look at, go ahead, Dee.
This is an economic issue. These people pay almost $100 billion a year in state and federal taxes, and so
that they never collect on.
Right, they don't collect on because they're not qualified. And so what do? Then we spend $1 jillion to incarcerate them, meaning that we don't get the taxation that they were getting from the jobs they had. We don't get the damn tomatoes from Florida because nobody wants to pick them, or they might have to go to who knows where. It's asinine on every level, economic, personally, etc. It just has to stop. But that's a whole nother show too, right, Scott?
It really is. And Abdul mentioned, the violent criminals, and I don't think anybody is saying we should leave violent illegal aliens in the country. But the crime rate amongst illegal immigrants is even less than it is among native-born Americans. The number of violent criminal illegal aliens in this country is minuscule, and we have plenty of space to house that small population of people if we round up only the ones that need rounded up, as it were. And this, Dee, you said a congressional candidate was going to be leading protests. Was that Cindy Worth? I did see something that she had posted about this.
That was Brad Meyer, the 9th District, running against Aaron.
Okay, I have not seen that. I will look more into that and share whatever information I can find. Let's move on, though, to our one big thing this week. This is what we were all looking forward to. We all did our homework. We all went and saw Superman. Best homework I've had to do in a long time. Go to the movies, take my wife, eat entirely too much popcorn. Let's talk about Superman. Although first, hey, what's you popcorn or candy at the movies? I'm a M&M's guy. What's everybody's favorite concession?
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
I made popcorn with Nestle Crunch mixed in, so I get the right amount of salt and sugar.
Oh,
there you go.
I do something similar. Popcorn with snow caps.
Yep.
But you got to buy the snow caps at the dollar store. It doesn't count.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, you also got to put the butter halfway between the popcorn and the salt half in the middle, then on top of it as well to get it to work really, really well.
Yeah.
So.
All about technique. That's right.
And if you put them on at just the right time, the chocolate melts.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
And I wonder why I have high blood pressure. So there we go.
Your life is short. Eat the popcorn and enjoy it.
This
Let
is
me tell you about
an important conversation that people come
I've
for.
seen Superman for a long time, but I like some of the outcomes of it. That I read that adoption searches
Pet adoption
such are up like 513% for schnauzers. By the way, I just saw that in Indiana. You might want because of crypto, right?
I love that dog.
And
Crypto with a K, yeah.
what I took from it is that he said, be kind because it's cool to be kind, right? Have you ever heard that before? And to always tell the truth. And that most billionaires are villains, so we'll have to do that, and that we all belong. More importantly, we're all human. Now, if that's woke, man, I am awake as long as I live.
Yeah, it's funny. Like Superman, like truth, justice, the American way, right? Like, definitely the quintessential American superhero. And you would think the right would be all kinds of behind that, but like Fox News was freaking out.
Well, there was one thing.
So
There was actually one people said that Superman was an illegal alien. Like, well, technically he's not, because under American law, if your home country ceases to exist, even though you came here legally, you get automatic citizenship. So since Krypton exploded, Superman is actually a legal immigrant to the United States of America.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
Abdullah,
But
I got a shirt, so I did my homework.
But like, Clark Kent, he didn't have papers, right? I mean, I don't think he's got a birth certificate. He just showed up on Ma and Pa Kent's farm, The triggering event, I think, for a lot of the Fox News types was James Gunn, the writer and director of the new movie, told the Sunday Times in a big profile interview that the story that Superman is the story of America, stating it is about an immigrant that came from other places and how basic human kindness is a value and is something we have lost. And I mean, I don't think those should be controversial statements, right? But Kelly.
But here's the thing: there's always got to be an outrage class. Somebody's got to be upset about something. And like I said, my wife and I've been Superman fans since I was like 8 years old. Christopher Reeve, George Reeves, Brandon Roth, Henry Cavill, the whole 9 yards. Even though Christopher Reeve will always be my Superman. Yeah. But the exception of Superman 3 and Richard Pryor, that was horrible. Oh, that computer and Robert Vaughn, that was god awful movie.
Superman Christopher Reeve was my first crush as a kid.
And actually, it was my sister's first crush, or my little brother's first crush. I couldn't remember which one. But I will say this: the thing that made Superman movie work for me was we know he's got superpowers. It was looking at sort of the human aspect of Clark Kent and how Superman sort of navigated, being Superman, in this world of ordinary mortals. I have this feeling all the time when I do stuff in Indianapolis, because Indianapolis is my metropolis. For Chicago is my Krypton, and Springfield is my Smallville. So the nice big triangle of the Abdul Superman existence. But the thing is, folks, it's just a movie. Relax. It's just a movie. Go in for a couple hours, relax, escape, and then go back to work. It's just a freaking movie. Calm down.
Okay, well I'm going to push back on that just a little bit. Not that I absolutely agree with your assessment, but it is not just a movie. It is not just a movie because it's culture, and it's a piece of iconic Americana, and it is culture shapes mores and behaviors. And right now, the MAGA universe is deeply invested in cruelty and normalizing cruelty, because without normalizing cruelty, all of their agenda becomes impossible to achieve. And we literally have Christian influencers that get on and they talk about toxic empathy. Think about that.
Oh, yep.
And that's the milieu that we're operating in here. And to have America's superhero, the iconic and original American superhero, spring on board and run around saying golly gee and spend all his time saying, I don't care what you people say, I want to be nice to people. That is a direct challenge against that new system of belief that they're trying to institute here. So it's not just a movie, it's deeply impactful, and I'm thrilled that it pissed them off.
Yeah, it's also about to make $1 billion too worldwide. So
yeah, it had a great opening weekend, $125 million here over the 3-day weekend last week. Probably gonna do similar numbers this weekend. You said something great there, Tracie, that politics is downstream of culture, right? And if a movie like this, captures the zeitgeist and changes the culture to value kindness and empathy and doing the right thing and truth, justice, in the American way, right? If the culture changes in that direction, that does affect the MAGA agenda. That does affect the politics downstream. And it baffles me, I think, that people on the right are upset by this. Like, Superman hasn't always been woke, right?
Yes, that's the funny thing about this. This was a pretty garden variety Superman.
Yeah,
I mean, ignoring all the dark Superman shit, which is awful. Like, it's Superman getting out there, being goofy, being Superman. The same Superman we've known all these years. He hasn't changed a bit. They have.
Right. And well, Abdul, you're a comic book guy. Do you get into the history of them at all? We know,
yeah.
So Superman was created by a couple of Jewish kids in the 30s.
Exactly. When all that nonsense was going on and started to take place here. My thing is this: what I always loved about Superman's character wasn't so much it was his character, not so much his powers and abilities. He was a good guy, a decent guy. Back in the 50s, he was a very flat character. In the 80s, they kind of humanized him a little bit more, made him a little bit less powerful. But the one thing I really loved in Superman, the movie, the current version, was, not to spoil it, the Lex Luthor superhero character who he invented was actually out of the book, because that was actually Bizarro. Because in the 1980s remake of the Superman myth and genre, Lex Luthor gets a sample of Superman's hair and grows Bizarro out of it. And now that Bizarro, speaks in like, me happy and be here. Sound like Master Yoda talking most of the time. but that was sort of the whole thing. So I thought that was an interesting. There are lots of Easter eggs in there, and that part that part is like, wow, okay, that was pretty darn good.
One thing
go ahead, Tracie.
One thing that we, my husband as a super comic book geek too, and we were digging into this. And one thing that we were kicking around a little bit was the idea of wondering whether Superman's creators, how much they were influenced by Nietzsche's Übermensch and created Superman as a counterpoint to the ideas that Hitler was using when he appropriated Nietzsche for his agenda. So did they create a Superman who embodied the antithesis of what Hitler believed a Superman to be?
Oh, like this is what an Übermensch really is, right? That's somebody who stands up for truth and kindness. Yeah, I hadn't looked at it that way. Well, I know, in addition to being created by a couple of Jewish teenagers in the 30s, the whole Superman story is like very Jewish coded. In a time when Jews in this country were discriminated against, and obviously, the rest of the world, we know what was going on in Europe at that time. But what his Kryptonian name is Kal-El, right? El means God in Hebrew. His origin story is, that's the Moses story, basically, right?
You tried to basket for a rocket ship.
Yeah, exactly. And he's very much like the Samson in his own ways too.
In the 40s, they used Superman for ads and such, and he was very woke, and he said, "Don't be mean to immigrants and don't be mean to other people." That's what they used him for.
There is this great poster, and I'm sure we've all seen it floating around on social media, and it's like Superman with a bunch of kids standing around. He's telling them to keep their school all American. He says, like the U.S., their high school or their school is made up of people from different genders, races, and religions. And he states that anyone who hates or discriminates against people based on their race or religion is un-American. That thing came out in 1949.
Yep.
Before Brown versus Board even came down. Superman was talking about school desegregation before the Supreme Court was.
It was also don't forget too. It was also during the Cold War and the McCarthyism and the whole 9 yards, which was going on back then as well.
Yeah, so he's standing up to that in real time. Just like we talked about earlier, how you could draw parallels straight from the McCarthy era to the Trump era. Superman's been there the whole time too, standing up for the other side of things. And it's
basically his Superman's motto.
Circle.
Superman's motto is plain and simple: don't be an asshole. It's that simple.
Yep.
Right, but
treat people kindly and don't be a dick. Like I can't pull this out any more than that.
That's the thing, right? Like, why are these such hard concepts all of a sudden? I miss when that was just sort of how you did. You know what I found interesting about the movie, and one particular small thing, the way they presented his parents. Now, as a Midwesterner, I was like, yeah. But I found it interesting that they were there. It wasn't some of the representations you've seen of his parents in previous iterations, where they're younger and hipper. They made. I feel like this was a deliberate choice on the part of the director to present them as a people out of time, timeless values of kindness, of heartlandness, traditional Midwestern heartland values. I think they're making a statement with that those are still here. They're not going away, and they'll be there when you need them, which I found really a hopeful way of presenting it.
Yes, and contrast that with the Lex Luthor character, who is, a tech mogul, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see Elon Musk. Like it was not subtle. I mean, Lex Luthor is Elon Musk.
Actually, Lex Luthor is Hank McCoy from the X-Men movies.
Or like an amalgamation of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel.
There you go.
What was the name of the surveillance and defense contracting company?
It makes me crazy that they named it that, because it's so open. Palantirs are seeing eye stones that are used for nefarious purposes for Sauron to peek at what everybody's doing in Lord of the Rings.
Right, but then there's a Luthor's character has his own defense contracting firm in the movie, and I forget what it's called. It does start with a P. And it's like, oh my God, they're talking about Palantir.
Yeah. But the one issue I had with the movie, and it had nothing to do with the storyline of the themes, was about halfway through when the buildings are kind of falling down like dominoes. No one asked where it happened to Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Like, is Clark okay? Is he fine? Is he dead or alive? It's like, oh yeah, we'll get to him later. It's like, hey, but that was just my one. That's why I gave it an 8 out of 10 because of the Clark Kent thing. So.
Oh, like the people at the Daily Planet. Yeah, I mean, obviously Lois knows. Spoiler alert, in this movie, it's not a secret. Lois knows that Clark is Superman, and they're, dating and trying to make it work. Which is, an interesting kind of dynamic that I don't think we've seen before in a Superman movie.
No, I love that piece of it.
But in the book, they've been dating for years, and actually in the book they were married.
Oh, yeah. And remember, too, this movie was finalized. It was done last year before any of the things going on now were going on. So we may, like the troll farms, without being too much of a spoiler, like a government imprisoning people it doesn't like. Those things were done before any of that actually happened. So,
well, I mean, it was definitely heading that way, right? I mean, let's see, Elon Musk bought Twitter in 2022, I think. So, I mean, that whole rage farming thing was been going on that long it's been going on before then, but specifically with Musk and the way he weaponized Twitter over the last couple years. And
I miss
it's just really timely. What about the dynamic between the two countries in the movie? So a big part of the plot is that Superman is basically in trouble with the government for going around them and stopping a ally of the United States, who is more technologically advanced, from invading a smaller, technologically, primitive, I guess, country. I mean,
that's actually a storyline from the Superman Justice League series. Because there's when Batman left the Justice League to go form Batman and the Outsiders back in the 80s, there was an invasion. One country invaded another, and the Justice League wanted to do something about it, but the government said, no, you can't. And Batman was like, I'm an independent agent. Screw this noise. I'm going to go do whatever. And that's always been sort of this constant theme in the DC universe, less in the Marvel universe. In the DC universe has been, okay, if Superman's got all these powers and abilities, why does he use it to stop wars, to do this, to do this, to do this? And if you go back to the original Superman movie from 1978, Marlon Brando, the Godfather, basically tells Christopher Reeve, do not interfere with the course of human history. Yes, you can do things and blah, 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 blah. And then said, he can rule them like a god, and which I thought was the other part, an interesting movie too. He didn't hear the whole message from his parents. So that even Jor-El and Lara were flawed individuals. But Superman rose above his station to see humanity as this thing worth saving, or at least half of humanity anyway.
Even if Jor-El were actually Bradley Cooper, gotta love that.
Hey, I didn't know that. I didn't catch that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that missed part of the message thing canon?
Not necessarily. I mean, the next part of the message was in the book. Like I said, it depends on which iteration of Superman you're looking at, whether it's the rocket ship lands or the Green Crystal Superman and Marlon Brando. That's not canon, but it's been a new part of the series. Now, also please note, DC does a series called Elseworlds, where they take like a little change in a superhero's history and totally, turn him or her around, because they did several of them where Superman actually became a dictator of the universe, but he was a benevolent dictator of his own thing. So yes and no, if that answers your question.
I mean, did anybody else think that I forget the name of the countries, but I couldn't help but seeing Israel and Palestine there. I mean, you say this is from a previous Superman comic, but boy, that looks really timely. And as they all that stuff's going on.
It's Israel, Palestine. Pick two nations: Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, Russia, Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's plenty of world conflicts that you could pick from to do this.
Yeah.
Hey, look at Indianapolis and Beach Grove.
Yeah, between the technological disparities, I thought the bad guy from the bigger country was very Netanyahu coded. And the corrupt dealings of that dictator with tech moguls.
Well, and also
surveillance state. Yeah.
Russia's not supposed to be our ally, for that analogy. Russia's not supposed to be our ally. And yet right now we're acting like Russia's our ally. So
yeah, it's interesting to me, because I didn't code that as Palestine and Israel. I coded that more as Russia and Ukraine, despite the fact that it was really clear that the country of Jaranpur was intended to be a more brown-skinned Muslim country. That's interesting. It kind of makes a lot of the fact that dictator and those two political figures kind of occupied the same space in this conversation says a lot about what Netanyahu and Putin have in common.
So, well, we only got a couple minutes here. I wanted to make sure everybody gets a chance to tell everybody where to find them and whatnot before we get to that real quick. Abdul, you said 8 out of 10. What's everybody give the movie? And should folks go see it?
Oh, definitely go see it. And on the big screen and in IMAX.
Yeah, I definitely say to go see it. And I'd say, 8 out of 10. I think that's fair.
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, not because it was the best movie I ever saw in my life, but it was just so refreshing to have this set of values reinforced. And also my kids had fun. So.
And yeah, I liked it a lot too. I actually thought it was kind of overhyped. I was expecting more from it, but it was still really good. Solid movie. And yeah, I do like the themes and the values that it portrays. I guess I'm a harsh grader. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, but it's a good movie, worth seeing. Saw it in 3D. If you can, see it in the 3D or the IMAX.
So here's the question. Who played the better Lex Luthor? Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey?
Gene Hackman. Oh. Easy. Done. Move on.
I kind of like the new guy. I really think he embodies that kind of slimy, business first kind of guy. And like, do you remember Magnolia and Tom Cruise's character in that movie? He's like a manfluencer kind of guy. I don't know. I could not unsee like Tom Cruise's character in Magnolia as Lex Luthor in this movie.
My husband said the same thing. He kept saying Tom Cruise about this guy.
There's something cruisy about him.
Yeah, yes. I couldn't figure it out because I didn't get that at all. But we both felt that this particular version of Luthor, some of the earlier iterations of Luthor, they give him some redemptive qualities or some certain charm. That this one, they just made him straight out sleazy and awful, and that's nice because it's a very traditional villain. And I
competent and ruthless. Yes.
You see, but actually, Luthor did have a redeeming quality in the sense that why are people looking up to this alien? For hope and inspiration, we need to look at ourselves as human beings. So that I thought was an interesting twist.
Yeah, and you know what? This is going to be. You can see them setting up for more movies down the line in this universe, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I've not been a comic book movie guy, but I'm getting there. So. Let's wrap this thing up. I wanted to give everybody a chance to say goodbye to the good people and tell them where they can find them. Abdul, where can the people find your work?
IndiePolitics.org, right there on the little label thing is where you find most of my work. We do stories on state government, mostly Indianapolis, Central Indiana, but something happens in Fort Wayne, Evansville, Gary, or Terre Haute, where we're always happy to write about it. We also do a little news, and it's all open source. It's all free. But I do a publication called The Cheat Sheet, which is all the gossip, rumor, and blatant political innuendo that has a 90%. I did an analysis, has a 90% chance of being right most of the time, which is kind of scary and kind of frightening. And by the way, our next cheat sheet, we got some more information coming out on Diego Morales, which will also be fun and interesting. And let's put it this way. It'll be "I told you so." Is what that will be. I told you people this was going to happen, and people said I was wrong. Abdul, where is it? Like I told you this was going to happen, and so now it actually is. Also, you can sign up for my daily email. We go through the newspapers, the night before, find like the top 10 stories in Indiana, so people can like look at it, synthesize it, and the whole 9 yards. So I also do a couple television shows, Indiana Issues, television, radio. So we're a big giant media whore. Always, I say media slut, but media sluts do it for free. Media whores get paid.
Love it. Thank you. Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, Indy's finest proprietor of tea. Tracie Martin, where can the folks find you?
So I host a podcast called Bluer by the Lake that you can find on Substack, bluerbythelake.substack.com. We cover, we just got off the ground. We cover blue facing issues specific to Northwest Indiana. We're hoping to kind of fill in some of those media coverage gaps and the media desert that we've got developing up here. And I'm very excited. We're just about to launch our first sort of in-depth series where we explore LGBTQ plus religious issues up here in the area. And we just got launched on all of our social channels. I just posted my very first TikTok of all time the other day. We're on Instagram now. We have our dedicated Facebook page, and you can find us on Spotify and most places where you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube as well. I haven't been able to crack the Apple Podcast code because I still don't have a fucking Apple ID.
Talk to me about that one after the show. I'll help you out, Tracie.
Please.
But yes, thanks for joining us. It's always a good time when you're here. And finally, Dee, do you even want the people to find you?
Well, that's why I live in the country, Scott. But I live amongst the MAGA. Having said that, yes, I am on social media all over the place. I of course follow Abdul, have for some time, and Scott and everybody that I find. So I'll have to go find Tracie. Also on Facebook, etc. And you of course will find me at most Democratic functions in Monroe County and in Bloomington. But let me just say that when I was a kid, this is July the 20th. On July the 20th of 1969, I was a kid sitting in a state park with a black and white TV about that big, watching Neil Armstrong step foot onto the moon.
Stop it.
He said, as I recall, he said that's one giant step for man, one
small step for man, one giant step for mankind.
One giant leap for mankind, I believe is what he said. And so to me, that is, see what we can do when we work together. That was 56 years ago. Let's not take that long to get there again.
Love it.
And by the way, also,
right.
Dee, just to piggyback on that, there's another part of the line he said, good luck, Mr. Anderson, whatever, something like that lines. Yeah. And because he was a kid, his neighbors were the Andersons, and Mr. Anderson asked Mrs. Anderson to perform a sex act, and she said, "I'll do it when that Armstrong kid walks on the moon."
What? No.
I am today years old when I'm finding this out. I've got to look more into this.
I'm Googling the shit out of that when I get off this call. Abdul!
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, everybody's got a project for the rest of your Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, right? Jesus.
But for now, on behalf of my panelists, Abdul-Hakim, Shabazz, Tracie Martin, and Dee Owens, I am Scott Aaron Rogers. This has been Who's Left This Week. Until next time, love each other, Indiana.
Bye.